Are you ready to get your health back but feel overwhelmed by the endless healthcare options? We believe God has called each of us to a specific assignment, and we want to make sure your body, mind, and heart are up for the task. It's time to simplify the process of healing. At Cornerstone Integrative Healing, we offer simple, effective, easy ways to prioritize your health and gain understanding. No prescription pad needed. I'm Kari, Coody, a pharmacist turned integrative health practitioner. I'm so excited to have these conversations around topics with my friend, Jenn.
Hi there, I'm Jenn, and together with our team at Cornerstone Integrative Healing, we offer an alternative to traditional healthcare, combining our expertise and experience in the medical field with our knowledge and faith to break the cycles of guessing what's wrong. We know the road to healing, feeling good again, can be overwhelming. You can expect honest conversations around the ups and downs of healing. The truth is, there are so many layers to healing. Because we've taken the time to learn where true healing comes from, we've learned how to help other women to discover a different way of caring for themselves. Join us every week for new episodes as we discuss topics that are personal and pertinent to your healing journey.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back into the podcast. It's Kari and Jenn here. We have an episode that you may be really interested in because it's something that maybe you've heard about and you don't really sort of understand how everything fits together. And I know there's a lot of controversy around being out in the sun. Should you wear sunscreen? Should you not wear sunscreen? Like, what are the things that you need to know about this topic? We're going to be talking about that in today's episode. And it's definitely become one of the most misunderstood health topics, I think. We think. And, we all hear that most people or a lot of people are vitamin D deficient. How does that fit into this conversation? And I think that culture, maybe just modern medicine too, has sort of made us fear the sun for obvious reasons. I mean, there's definitely things you need to be aware of and precautions you need to take, but just approaching it, how you approach it is definitely, we probably have differing opinions on that. So we're going to share our thoughts on sun exposure and how you can use it to your benefit.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a misunderstood topic. I think, the big thing is people obviously, does it contribute to the skin aging? And, it's hard. You'll be hard pressed to find an esthetician that says, like, obviously don't wear
Right.
sunscreen on your face and all those sorts of things. But, I think it went to one extreme, which is avoiding the sun at all costs, which we title this episode, Avoiding the Sun Can Be as Dangerous as Smoking. That's actually a subtitle from an email that we got from, one of the blue blockers glasses company. So I just thought we thought it was a great title because it gets people's attention.
Yeah, that's true.
So as Kari mentioned, probably almost half of us are vitamin D deficient. Obviously, it probably gets better as you drive south, because you have more sun exposure.
Yeah.
But, what we want to unpack is what the research actually says about sun exposure, why your body actually does need sunlight. Like, it's really important for signaling, for circadian rhythm, for hormones, for sleep, and how to build sun tolerance, also called your solar callus. This is super important. This is like kind of why we're doing this episode. It's springtime, and you can build over a couple, 2 to 3 weeks, build something called the solar callus, which is your tolerance to UV light. Unfortunately, modern habits, we went from being outside most of the time to being under fluorescent lights and working in an office. And so that's made us much more sensitive to the sun because we don't build that solar callus over time. So there was actually a 20-year Swedish study that was done for women who avoided sun exposure, and they had similar mortality rates to smokers, which is why, that the episode is titled that. So sun avoidance was actually linked to higher incidence of chronic disease and a shorter lifespan. So, just the moral of the story is, like, avoiding the sun can carry its own significant health risks as well as too much sun. And so that's kind of what we really want to talk about. So There are, in East Africa, a group, they live obviously, they're right on the equator, right? They live with consistent daily equator sun exposure. They don't have sunglasses, they don't, have sunscreen. They might probably use hats and barrier clothing for sure, but they have near 0 rates of skin cancer. Okay, so these are people who are in the sun all the time, and don't wear sunscreen, or sunglasses. Compared to, there was a study done in Northern Europe of office workers who see just a few hours of sun a week, and they have the highest rates of melatonin. So, and chronic disease, which was ironic. Isn't that ironic?
Yes, but not. Right.
Right. So why is that? So we're
Yeah.
going to talk about how you can get gradual, consistent exposure to the sun, how this builds your solar callus and your tolerance to UV. Try to avoid those. Most of us are, especially like me here in, the very northern climates, all winter we barely see the sun. And then we ship off to spring break and, we're wondering why we're all burning because we haven't seen the sun. So, and then we're just going to talk about some things that are supportive, like circadian rhythm and our environment and those sorts of things. Um, yeah. So, do you want to talk a little bit about why we're more sensitive to this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Um, and we've kind of alluded to these things, but just real quick before we jump into what is the solar callus and how do we build it, all of those things. So, as Jen mentioned, a lot of the times it is all or nothing. Even in the South, I mean, where we get a lot more sun, a lot more types of rays down here year round, we're still indoors a lot. People don't really even take advantage of that in a way that is conducive to building your solar callus. And so, it's just that all or nothing, indoors a lot and then outdoors very little, like the sudden increase in UV that can really cause you to burn. And also, this is a big one. There's so many more seed oils in our diet, and just they're very high in omega-6s. We don't get enough omega-3s from our diet, and so that is a recipe for faster burning, no matter how much you're out in the sun. Truly, like you're 40 times more susceptible to that photooxidation, so burning, if you have a diet high in seed oil. So, I mean, they're unstable in your body. These are things like vegetable oil, canola oil, if you go out to a restaurant, that's what they fry everything in. Or if you buy packaged foods, a lot of times that's what's in those packaged foods. So just increased inflammation really speeds up the burning process. And then artificial light is a big one as well. Of course, we're indoors more, we're under fluorescent lighting, especially at night. We don't maybe block that blue light and we're looking at phone screens more. So all of these things disrupt our circadian rhythm, which really, believe it or not, it makes you more at risk for burning because it increases inflammation and it throws off that cortisol melatonin balance. It all kind of works together, or it all kind of works against you, I guess is the way that I think about it. It's probably not just one thing, it's a combination of those things.
Sure. Yeah. And I just want to mention, I know we've talked about it here on the podcast before, about the Cataplex F, which has your unsaturated fatty acids that can counter I should say counter the sun if you are going to be in the sun for long periods. Obviously, if you're in the sun midday, you need a hat, you need some light covering, ideally, other than sunscreen. But the Cataplex F from Standard Process will help you avoid that intense burning too. I just wanted to
How
mention.
would you suggest taking that?
So I would take a couple, like maybe an hour before I went out for sun exposure. And then every couple hours, I'd probably take 2 more, maybe every 2 to 4 hours. When we go on vacation, literally bring the whole bottle and everybody takes at least a couple in the morning and a couple at night, but ideally maybe a couple during the day too. And it really does help
Yeah.
avoid your body, you know, convert and avoid the burn.
Does it help at all if you get burnt?
It does. So
Okay.
if you are burnt, you can take it after. It's
Yeah.
not obviously as effective, but it will help.
Just maybe help the speed, like the turnover
Yes,
time. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Tips for you.
Yeah, for sure, for
All
sure.
right, what about our solar callus? This is an odd name that maybe you've never heard of.
Yes, yes. So our solar callus is basically our tolerance to UV exposure. So it's our body's natural adaptation to to sunlight and basically a built-in system for handling UV light. And so what we want to do is gradually build this solar callus over 2 to 3 weeks during the springtime, right, where the UV maybe isn't as strong. So this solar callus in what happens is if you do it gradually over time is you increase your melanin production. So melanin, obviously, we all know helps makes you look tan, but it's also a very strong antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, and it prepares obviously your body for the stronger UV. So melatonin synthesis starts around 48 to 72 hours after exposure, and it actually peaks like a week later. So again, the gradual increase to light, which we'll talk about in a second here, is really the the main concept, right? It also causes actually thickening of your skin. So one of the layers of the skin is actually thickened 2 to 3 times if you do the gradual exposure. That acts as your natural kind of sunscreen in the skin. And so, with that melatonin building gradually with the thickening of the skin, your body, you're basically training the body to handle that stronger UV light. So don't think avoid the sun, think gradual, small exposures to the sun. So, what does that look like? How do we build the solar castles? So, morning light, which we've talked about hundreds of times.
I know, it feels like it anyway.
Yeah. If you haven't heard more on circadian rhythm, you can jump back on another podcast and hear more about that. But early morning sunlight. So early morning sunlight contains about half red and infrared light. So these are actually antidotes to UV light. Okay. So these wavelengths actually help reduce inflammation. They protect you against the UV damage later on. And they actually prime your skin to absorb UV without burning. And primes your nervous system. Also, this light helps with hormone production, adrenal hormones. So it's super, super important that we get that first morning light to kind of signal the body, as we've talked about, right? To prep the body for the day. It's telling the body what time it is because the body runs on an internal clock, right? But it's also, more importantly, prepping you for the stronger rays of UV later in the day, midday when it's strongest. So get outside, ideally within an hour of sunrise. And 5 to 10 minutes is really all you need, to get that red and infrared first thing in the morning. Okay. So, what we want to do then is, and it's funny because I know I mentioned that article. They talked about how animals like naturally will build their solar callus. They were talking about horses actually that kind of like sort of come out of the barn early in the morning, like peek in the sun, get their first kind of first morning light, and then they go back in the barn and they'll peek themselves out a little bit more midday, for a couple minutes and then go back in, and they gradually increase their
Wow.
time until summer comes when they're outside in the pasture all day
All
long.
the time.
Right.
That's pretty
Uh,
crazy.
that is
Pretty
crazy.
cool.
It is cool. So we want to start with 2 to 3 minutes, maybe, besides the first morning sun, is midday. So over the first 2 weeks, we want to work up to 10 to 20 minutes, outside midday, of full sun. Now, remember the solar cows, it takes time to build up. So we just want to do this gradually throughout the week. And not just, so start, and depending on your skin tone, right? That does matter also. So if you're super fair, very fair, 2 to 3 minutes aside, if you're outside for 3 to 4 weeks and increase very slowly. Where if you have darker skin, you might be able to stay out a little bit longer. So like I'm pretty fair. So I start with only, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. And then just see how my skin handles it. And then slowly we'll build up. And I, by the way, I have been doing this, after I've read this. I think we all sort of here in the North maybe naturally do it. It's just, we're so happy to see the sun. We just want to be outside. Um, so, yeah, so what we want to do is just slowly build up what we call that solar battery and increase our exposure. So no long, intense exposure right away. Uh,
Right.
yeah. Consistency is the biggest thing. So we don't want to go to intense midday sun for long periods. Remember, as Kari said, reduce the seed oils, of course, support our hydration, minerals, especially if you're listening and you have sleep problems, this is an absolute must.
Yeah.
Like, it will make a difference in your sleep. It will. I've seen it over and over. Um,
There's lots of benefits to the sun.
yes,
I
let's
mean,
talk about
you
that.
mentioned sleep, but also vitamin D production for sure. That's kind of like most people know that. Um, definitely better sleep, immune system. I mean, all of this is kind of tied together, right? Mood and
Yes.
mental health. Like the sun is just,
Sure.
yeah, it really does help us produce happy hormones,
Yep.
and even like our sex hormones, hormonal balance that way, definitely. Interestingly enough, nitric oxide can be supportive, which obviously supports blood pressure, just blood flow in general, cardiovascular health. Um,
Everybody's looking for more nitric oxide nowadays. I feel like
yeah,
it's a little bit of a buzz. They're looking for supplements that raise
yeah, that's true. Just
copper.
be outside in nature, like
Right, UV triggers the release of nitric oxide. Yeah,
no,
huge.
for sure. So,
And by the
let's talk.
way, an
Yeah.
appetite also activates an appetite regulating hormone in the body. I can't think of it right
Oh,
now.
leptin
It's
or
not, no, it's
ghrelin.
not leptin. It's a different one. But anyway, this specific sun exposure, UV sun exposure regulates this appetite uh,
Okay.
regulating hormone too. So there's another one for the ladies. I know.
Hey, if you're hungry and just bored, just go outside.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
eat if you're hungry, right? No, we're not saying don't eat, but
Oh,
like,
don't eat. Yeah, right, right.
if you're just eating because you're bored or just, yeah, go
Yeah.
outside.
And then back to sleep, there was a study done that showed basically people who had windowless offices, so they had less UV exposure, and you're not getting a lot, right? Most of the windows nowadays are very energy efficient, so they block all the red infrared
Yeah.
light. So you can't really get it through windows. But they basically, it showed that the workers who had more daytime uh, exposure to light actually slept longer, like up to an hour longer at night.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, just get your get your good sleep.
For sure. That's so important.
Yes.
Now, okay, this is a hot topic. What about sunglasses?
Oh, okay, yes. So, it's funny because I just kinda learned about this. So, about a year ago, I was reading, I think Kari and I, when we were talking about Kari View Wellness, when we did the podcast with her, she highly advises, if you can, to not wear sunglasses. Okay, why? So, because what happens is you're getting those sun signals, right, through your eyes. And when you're getting those sun signals through your eyes, it's actually telling the rest of your body, including your skin, what to do. So it's saying, "Hey, look, there is very high UV right now, and so you need to produce melatonin and all the other things." So when you're wearing sunglasses, you alter that mechanism in the body. You're kind of tricking the body into thinking like, oh, there isn't a ton of UV, right? Especially if they're like polarized
Yeah.
and so the skin isn't prepared for the light that's hitting the skin. So because you're blocking those key light signals to the brain through the eyes, you get, circadian rhythm disruption, hormone production, your body's ability to even produce vitamin D. And again, most importantly, how the body and the skin responds
Mhm.
uh, to that UV light. So yeah,
Okay,
if you
so
can,
hold on now. What about the wrinkles? People are gonna be like, "If I don't wear sunglasses, I'm gonna get more wrinkles." Okay, I
right.
know what you're thinking.
Right, right. So my suggestion is, and what I've personally been trying to do is just wear a hat. So if you are midday or you're at a baseball game and like, look, you need to block the sun. I've been trying to just use barriers. So
Yeah,
wear a hat. I brought some like coverings that I can just throw over my shoulders. If I'm outside and I have
right.
t-shirts. So a barrier, obviously, if you have a nice long sleeve linen, light top that, I'll wear those to the baseball games if I'm going to be in the sun rather than wearing sunscreen.
I think your eyes will get more used to the sun, and you won't
For
sweat
sure.
as much if you have a hat on.
Sure.
Like, I think we're so used to wearing sunglasses, so then when we take them off and we don't wear them, we're like, "Oh, we can't see," but your eyes really do get used
They
to it.
do. They do.
Yeah.
And I've really transitioned. I rarely
Yeah.
wear sunglasses. I'll occasionally if I'm driving, like, and it's really
Yeah, like, if you're in a car, there's a lot of reflection, so in
right.
a car, I do wear sunglasses. I try to
Yes.
all the time, but outside, that's what we're talking about, so I know if you have more questions about that, let us know, but it's definitely something that might be new to you, like, I always wear sunglasses everywhere I go.
Right,
Well,
right.
take a hat or something
There.
and try that. It
Yes.
really does make a difference over time.
Yes. Don't be afraid of the sun. And then lastly, you wanna talk about artificial light, nighttime stuff?
Yeah. So I am going to link some podcasts below that we've already done on this topic if you want more information, but just blocking artificial light, especially at night, really, really does help with this whole conversation. So that would mean like after the sun goes down, wearing blue light blockers if you're going to be on screens or watching TV or, having lights on overhead and things like that. Or just shifting to warmer lighting can really make a big difference. Replacing your light bulbs. That's something that we've talked about before that's really easy. And honestly, I've gotten so used to that. I just love that. It kind of sets like the right mood. It just is
Yeah.
very calming. So that's something pretty easy that you can do. And especially in a few lamps like that you like to have on, in the den or something, just replacing those light bulbs can make a really big difference. Because melatonin is just as powerful as vitamin D. That's a very under talked about thing, but
It
it's the
really is.
balance of those two. And that's why it's so important in the winter. Of course, we're coming out of that. We're talking about spring and summer, but just that balance and having enough melatonin is really key. Has lots of benefits, cellular
Yes.
and
Yes.
otherwise.
And you will like, as you build up the melanin, right, it starts acting like a solar battery, so it allows you to absorb more of the higher UV index light without burning, and that's where you get into the benefits go beyond, like, just burning your skin, right, which we
Yeah.
talked about, like the nitric oxide and, improved sleep and all that other stuff.
Yeah, and it might be a whole other conversation that just popped in my mind. Should you wear sunscreen? I know that's probably people are thinking that. So, I
Right,
don't know.
right,
Let
right.
us know if you want a whole episode on that. We might could do that.
Yeah, I know, it's like heresy not to for you to say not to wear sunscreen.
Right, and that's not what we're saying. I think it's just looking at it differently
Yeah,
and just
sure.
yeah. All right, guys. Well, we
Yeah,
enjoyed it. Let us know if you have any questions at all. We would be more than happy to answer those. And we would be so grateful if you love our podcast, if you would leave a review for us on wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple. That helps more people find this information. And we believe that it can be super helpful. So we would love it if you would leave a review or share it with a friend that you feel like would like this information. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
if this episode has served you in any way, drop a review wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd love it if you share any aha moments or takeaways on Instagram and tag us at Cornerstone Integrative Healing.
And if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do so. We want to continue to walk this journey with you. Until next time, friends, know that we are praying for you.